Fall camp intel is back. We got scrimmages going on. A lot of teams just wrapped up their scrimmages. First one, probably have a second one this upcoming week, and then most of the sport kicks off August 30th weekend. I got to tell you something before we even get into it. I'm not going to mention any names. I'm not going to mention any schools, but I want to tell you some of the feedback we're getting, some of the dumbest feedback ever that is just, it's a head scratcher. It's a head shaker. If I told you there was a chronic issue that a lot of staffs are dealing with right now, Power 4 staffs across the country, what is the chronic issue? Because it's not kids getting arrested anymore. Hardly ever happens. We have chronicled that on this show. There's like exceptions to the rule here and there, but largely kids don't really get in trouble anymore. Here's the problem. It's right here. I'm holding it in my hand. It is a cell phone. And you may think to yourself, oh, yeah, everyone's on their cell phone. No, I'm talking legit phone addiction. Cannot keep your attention in meetings. We are aware of one Power 4 quarterback race right now where there is legit competition, and one of the staff's biggest complaints about one of those quarterbacks who legitimately could win a starting Power 4 job is we can't even keep him off his phone. And they're not talking about in the dorm at night. That's fine. Do that. Stay out of trouble. They're talking about in the building, in meetings, in installs and whatnot. Like legit addiction. So, yeah, I mean, I know if you're roofing down in Lafayette, Louisiana, you're 47 years old listening to the replay on a Monday, that is the dumbest thing you've ever heard in your life. But you're not 19 years old. So I don't know what else to tell you. Just if you can do nothing more than achieve the simple baseline of putting your phone down and paying attention, you've given yourself a leg up in quarterback competitions these days. Okay, what's happening at Florida? DJ Lagway, have we bubble wrapped him? Prayer hand emojis here for DJ. How many street fights can this team create early in the year is my growing question. And I think it's the vibe that staff's got. I'm picking up on this more and more. So DJ Lagway, for those who haven't been keeping track of fall practice reports out of Gainesville, he's been banged up a little bit. He had the shoulder thing. He had a calf thing. And so they've been limiting him. And it's not that he couldn't play a game this week. It's that they're handling him for a reason to get him ready to play games. But I'm thinking about that. I'm thinking about how relatively banged up they've been at wide receiver. And what that does is it doesn't cross those guys off the list. It's not like they're not going to play this year. What it means is if I'm Florida, I'm losing valuable repetitions that those players would have gotten in August. And so it adjusts my expectations for Florida out of the gate. I think the offense could be a little wobbly out of the gate. That's why the follow-up is, if their offensive line is what I think it is, scratch that. If their offensive line is what they think it is, if their defensive front personnel is what they think it is, and if their tailback room is what they think it is, you know what they ought to be able to do? They ought to be able to win a game 19-13 if they need to in Death Valley in week 3. They ought to be able to go down there and score 23 and win against Miami a week later. They ought to be able to put Texas on the ropes and bloody their nose a little bit. And you know what? If they need to keep them under 24, you ought to trust that you could do that. Now, you hope eventually by the time you're playing Ole Miss late in the year and Tennessee late in the year, you can score 40 if you need to. That offense should be very explosive. That wide receiver room is very underrated. And you are a very dynamic offense. But the more that I hear, so-and-so's limited today, so-and-so, we got to give him a couple days rest. That's okay. That's okay. You just got to have more than one way to win. I think that's the vibe around that staff right now. I mean, it should have been anyway, but I think it really is right now. What about Ohio State? Every spring these days, we have to parse through the quarterback competitions. Some of them are for show. Some of them are for real. And this Ohio State quarterback competition has been for real. That's Julian Sayin, and that's Lincoln Kienholz. Kienholz probably a better athlete. He's not probably. He's a better athlete than Julian Sayin. He probably gives you a more dynamic threat with his legs. I have thought and still think Julian Sayin is going to win this job, but it doesn't matter what I think because I think the Ohio State coaching staff believes he's going to win the job. He's got to take the job, and he hasn't taken the job yet. That's the beauty of competition. It does not matter. And what you get yourself into, the longer this goes, I mean, I'm looking at quotes from Ryan Day. This is going to go down to the wire. I don't think he's BSing. I think he's being dead honest about that. What you run the risk of is they play Texas week 1. It's not a layup game in week 1. And so what happens is you could think one thing for 7 or 8 months. Like I've thought Julian Sayin's going to win this job for 7 or 8 months. You know what that's worth? Nothing. And I take you back to, what was it? It was Jalen Hurts and Blake Barnett several years ago for Bama. That was the same dynamic there. That dynamic was Barnett was a former 5-star quarterback. Like these days, you say, who? But back then, he was a former 5-star quarterback. And all throughout spring, he had a leg up on this Jalen Hurts kid from Channelview, Texas. No one really knew much about him yet. And then in summer, like Hurts is working his tail off, still think it's going to be Barnett's job. Fall camp. Barnett's taking reps with the ones. He's going to start against USC. But, I mean, Jalen Hurts may get a couple series. And people talk about it like it's a movie script. No, it's competition. It's raw competition. Well, here's what happened. What happened was Blake Barnett, if you've ever seen a deer in headlights, and I grew up in the country, so I've seen several, you know what that game was like for him. If you haven't ever seen one, don't go out looking for a deer, and don't turn your brights on. Just go watch the replay. Barnett had no shot. And then Jalen Hurts comes in, and Hurts took the job. The point being, everything you said and you thought over a 6, 7, 8-month period evaporated in the span of a quarter or two. You run the risk of that happening here. The longer this goes without them naming a starter, you run the risk of that happening. Also, unrelated note, sounds like they're pretty high on their tailback room, and they need to be for reasons I just stated, and also because Ohio State never wins if they can't run the ball. They do need to get offensive tackle settled there. Texas. Hey, really quick timeout. We'll get right back to the video. Do me one favor. Make sure you're subscribed. It helps us keep the show free. It helps us keep the lights on. It helps us keep doing college football year-round, and we appreciate it. All right, back to the video. Famously has pumped a lot of guys into the NFL, specifically on the interior of their defensive line. So back-to-back cycles now, they're having to backfill, and because they're so good at acquiring talent, they could do it last year. Murad Watson, the transfer from Syracuse, has to be a linchpin there this year. It sounds like early returns. He is. So they hit there. That's not surprising. I don't think Texas rolled the dice when they took him. So I love what we're hearing there. I love what we're hearing about Ryan Wingo. That's no like really, really deep dive nugget for Texas fans. They know he's a superstar. The country doesn't know he's a superstar yet. And I really think if there's any name that explodes outside of Arch Manning, maybe because of Arch Manning, it's Ryan Wingo. And Grayson Littleton's a name we keep hearing a lot about, who is former 3-star guy, and he's just worked his way into the rotation. It sounds like he's getting really meaningful reps when they're running nickel stuff. And so you may see him on the field, and the reason that's noteworthy is, again, because they open against Ohio State. So if I've got a young kid on the field and I've got an alien at wide receiver, in this case named Jeremiah Smith, and you're talking about matchups that could dictate that game, that's just something to keep an eye on. Penn State, a lot of scoop from Penn State. Good things so far. I've got the fingers crossed. Sounds like good things so far on these wide receiver transfers, which could be the difference in them losing 2 games and winning a national title this year. Kobe Hudson's a freshman. Like him. They got a redshirt freshman, Tyseer Denmark, like him. So all of a sudden, wide receiver depth at Penn State is a concept that could be a reality. You're saying to yourself, I'm going to have to see that to believe it. That's okay, because I'm the same way. Some things I have to see, like Lincoln Riley having a really good defense. I got to see that to believe it. Wide receiver play, scaling up at Penn State. Respectfully, I got to see it to believe it. I will also tell you that we have heard great things about Amari Campbell. That is a North Carolina transfer at linebacker. Could green dot him. He could be the play caller there for Penn State. And, I mean, that's a team that's really good defensively. Tony Rojas is there. Expect a big year from him at linebacker. But Amari Campbell was talking to some guys that were on the staff at North Carolina last year. Could not say enough good things about Amari Campbell. And so that's a guy that's overlooked because of the wide receivers they went and got. But Amari Campbell, you're going to see him like Oregon comes in there in week 4, week 5, I think. Just remember that name, because that's a kid by week 5 I really, really think is going to be a stalwart defensively for them. And, you know, they got a lot of them. You know, some notes. Bama, Ty Simpson's going to win that starting quarterback job. I would be shocked if that didn't happen. It looks more and more like it's Bryce Underwood going to be the starter, going to be the starting quarterback, true freshman quarterback at Michigan. We'll see. I mean, they go to Oklahoma week 2. I mean, that's Brent Venables getting a true freshman in his building in week 2, if that's the way it goes. Now, that's the only way to The only way to get better at football is play football. So, it's not like you shy away from that. You're a competitor. I'm just saying the dynamics aren't great there. Colorado. Caden Salter going to win this quarterback battle? It looks for all the world like he is right now, which is interesting. Juju Smith out there. And Tennessee, again, offense does not look good right now. Still got a ways to go. Defense carried them portions of last year, so maybe that's the way they win again. I keep sounding like I'm so down on Tennessee. I'm not. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to have reasonable expectations for them. I don't believe just because you made the playoff last year, you automatically take the next step the following year. I don't think what they've got to do is they got to coach the tail off, and they got to find a way to plug 13 holes with 10 fingers for a little while. And if they can, and they go solid 9-3 this year, that's an ultra successful year. There's a path where I'm happy with 8-4 with Tennessee. So camp intel is back. Some scrimmages. I'm gonna be on the road a lot the next couple of weeks. I'm gonna go see some practices, practi, plural of practice, and may do a show or two on the road. But gonna go talk to a lot of staffs and see a lot of practice. So camp intel is the backbone of our August content map.